Well, that's an unusual picture to start with, but it'll make sense in just a second. You have to understand, though, in behavioral psychology, when we talk about learning, the behaviorist talks in terms of conditioning a behavior. This is a setup in our over 100-year-old Russian experiment that has become quite famous. This is Pavlov's dog. Welcome to classical conditioning. Here's some vocabulary words: stimulus, response. So as an example, you'll get a good picture of what this all means. When a dog sees food, it salivates. Yum, yum, I'm about to eat. You don't have to train or teach a dog to salivate at the sight of food. It's unconditioned. The stimulus of food is an unconditioned stimulus, and it creates an unconditioned response. They don't have to be trained, it's just automatic. Unconditioned response of salivating, getting ready to eat. Now, let's apply some conditioning to this unconditioned situation. How about we ring a bell every time the food comes out, or right before the food comes out? Well, if you do that often enough, you ring that bell and that dog will start salivating whether the food actually appears or not. So in other words, the bell is a conditioned stimulus that creates a conditioned response. Okay? The bell is this artificial thing that has nothing to do with food, but it becomes the stimulus to get the dog to salivate because it has been conditioned to do that now. Its behavior is now new and different. And we ring a slightly different but similar bell, and sure enough, the dog salivates anyway. Why? Because of what is known as stimulus generalization. Okay? The stimulus mechanism, that response mechanism, kicks in when something at least close to the original conditioning stimulus comes along. So a similar bell will create it. Salivation happens. Okay, you start thinking, well, wait a minute, how are teachers going to use that? Well, the answer is not much. Really, Pavlov did discover something very important, and he was on to something that led to more research down the line. But in terms of actually using stimulus response in this classical way, there isn't much really pedagogically that teachers can do with that. However, psychologists do use this for things such as overcoming phobias. Okay, I have a fear of spiders. Well, you do you? I'll tell you what. I'm going to associate spiders, the sight of a spider, with the most beautiful music that you love the most, until finally spiders don't cause fear anymore. It can work. Another example, overcoming obsessions. I just can't help myself overeating or whatever your obsession is. Oh, don't worry, I can fix that. All I have to do is associate that tendency you have, okay, that obsessive tendency, all I have to do that is associate that with something really unpleasant. So every time you think you're going to reach into the refrigerator and grab another snack, I'm going to fill the room with the most noxious odor until finally you're going to avoid the refrigerator without even having to be learning it in the way that we were talking about in other videos. It just becomes an automatic new response because of this new association. Clever, I suppose, right? But again, not great what you call classroom kinds of applications. So, take a look back at this video, learn a little bit more about this classical conditioning, check out the questions, the supplemental readings, and see if you can find your own applications for these sorts of things.